Hi everybody! Today we are going to tackle the very first fraction lesson to review adding of fractions. So in your foldable, on the one side it should say adding fractions. Flip it over and there is our notes. Alright, so the first thing we need to make sure that we are aware of when we are going to be adding fractions is that we must have common denominators. Numerators are the top part of the fraction. Denominators are the bottom part of the fraction. As you can tell in the two fractions we have here, the denominators are not the same. Therefore, we need to change the numerator and the denominator by multiplying by the same number. We know with our first unit of study that if you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same thing, the fractions are equivalent. So we're not changing the value, we are just changing the denominator so that we can actually add together. So to get started, why do we multiply? If we're multiplying by the same number, it helps to find the least common multiple, or you might even hear it be called the least common denominator. So we're going to start with that. So our two denominators are 3 and 6. So we are going to start off by making our t-table with our numbers 3 and 6, and we're going to start listing our multiples. So we have 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 4 is 12. And we do the same thing with 6. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12. Oh, wait, guess what we already found out here? If you look at what is the least common multiple, the smallest number they both have in common, we can stop right here. 6 is the very first number they both have in common. So if we look at our two original fractions, we can see that this one already has that denominator of 6, so we don't have to do anything to that fraction. We can leave it alone. This is the only fraction here that we need to change. So we're going to pull that fraction out and copy it, and we are going to say, well, we want to make our denominators both equal to 6. So how do I get from 3 to 6? Well, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6. So if we multiply the denominator by 2, we multiply the numerator by 2. And now we have the equivalent fraction, 2/6. Now we're going to put our fractions together so that we can add 2/6, our new fraction, add it to the 5/6 that was in the original fraction. And now we do what it says here, add the numerators. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And keep the denominators. So the denominators are 6, so our answer is also going to be 6. Our very last step then is to simplify if possible. As we notice, our fraction is an improper fraction. We can turn this fraction and figure out how many groups of 6 can we get out of 7. An easy way to do that is just to divide. So if we went 7 divided by 6, I can get 1 out of there. And if I subtract, I have a remainder of 1. So my answer is 1. I can get 1 whole, 1 group of 6. I would have 1 left over out of the 6. And there would be my answer in simplest form. Okay, moving on to the bottom. Now we're looking at adding mixed numbers. So here is our problem on the bottom, moving right along. We must have common denominators, as always, for fractional parts of numbers. So what we're going to think about for this one is we are going to add fractions, and we're going to add whole numbers. So let's go ahead and get started adding our fractions. Our first fraction is 1/6 plus 2/3. So we go and we use the same steps we used up above. The denominators are not the same Because they are not the same, we need to find a common denominator. But if we look above, we can cheat a little bit. We had these exact same denominators up above. So we know the common denominator for both of them is 6. We don't have to do that again. We've already solved that. So this one already has a 6, so we don't have to touch this fraction. But now this is the fraction we're going to want to change. So we have 2/3. And what can we do to 2/3 to make it a fraction over 6? Well, we know above that 3 times 2 is 6. So 2 times 2 is 4. And there is our new fraction. So now let's put our fractions together. And we have 1/6 plus 4/6, which is the new fraction we just made equivalent. Add our numerators like we did before. 1 plus 4 is 5. Keep our denominator the same, which is a 6. And now we're going to add our whole numbers. So our whole numbers were 2 and 4. And 2 plus 4 is also 6. So I have my fractional part and I have my whole number part. The next part says if the fractional part is an improper fraction. So if I'm looking at my fraction, 5/6 is not improper. The fraction up here, 7/6, was improper, which is why we had to reduce and simplify to make it a mixed number. But down here, we do not have to do that part. But if we did, we would change it to a mixed number. So this step could also apply to up above. If you want to draw an arrow, feel free that you could also do that up there. So if you want to draw that arrow, good to know that that applies to both. Okay, and then finally the last step was simplify if possible. And by looking at it, the fraction looks good. We don't have to reduce it. Our whole number is good. For our final answer is 6 and 5/6. So there are your notes, some simple notes to review, adding fractions and adding mixed numbers. Go ahead and finish up your notes and go check in with your teacher. See you later.